Good morning. Another beautiful Oklahoma sunrise. Thank you for being with me. There's so much pink. Oh, it's beautiful. Wish you were here. All right, chapter 6, how to read mood language. I'm trying to tell you what I want. The message of moods. We have all been reading the language of each other's moods all our lives. Any child knows that when his mother starts glaring at him and her voice begins to rise, he'd better get his alibi right because she's in a mood of anger. However, he may not be able to read that she is merely faking that mood to control his wayward behavior. If he could read what she really means, he would be able to diffuse her rejection of him almost instantaneously. Similarly, two people who love each other but who keep arguing may be aware that they are constantly pushing each other into and through denial, anger, depression, and bargaining. Yet they are frustratingly unable to pinpoint what it is they are really trying to say to each other through these moods, and consequently never seem able to respond to each other's needs. Before any of us can begin to respond to each other's real Before any of us can begin to respond to each other's real needs, we have to be able to read each other's mood language accurately. This is because mood language is what we all use to convey what we really mean and what we really want from each other. The next category, the what and how of mood language. This mood language is expressed both verbally and non-verbally. The real meaning of what a person is trying to say can only be clearly read in the full context of what they express verbally and how they express it verbally, vocally, and physically. Our mental and emotional responses to the moods of both acceptance and rejection are accompanied by physical changes in our body, which have a profound effect on the way we express ourselves in each of our moods. Our behavior varies in distinct ways as we experience alterations in our heart rate, our respiratory activity, muscle tone, and even the size of our blood vessels with each mood change. These combined mental, emotional, and physical reactions produce a truth that cannot be suppressed, a truth that leaks out into everything we say and do, a truth that is expressed in a form we may never have understood before or even known was there. Mood language. Mood language is not difficult to read. We all do it instinctively. Anyway, in a hit or miss fashion without realizing it. However, in order to read a person's real meaning all the time, we have to learn to understand, not randomly, but systematically, and what it is they are trying to tell us. We must learn to look and see, listen and hear, sense and deeply understand. We must learn their mood language. What to see. Okay, the next category. What to see, hear, and sense. The general guidelines. Oh, it's so pretty. Those colors. Think about the sunrise. You can't paint the colors because they are constantly moving. When you're painting, you're just using the colors that don't change. Okay, back to our book here. What to see, hear, and sense. General guidelines. The following general guidelines list the 6 things you must see, hear, and sense in order to read mood language. If you keep these specific points in mind every time you have a conversation with anyone, you will become acutely aware of the eloquence of mood language and all the meanings you may have been missing. Your skill at reading this language will increase as you become more and more aware of the type of information you are taking in. You will suddenly realize that you are making sense of and understanding the real meaning of what people are saying to you. Okay, part 1, or numero uno, number 1. Any variation from the norm. As mood language is expressed through variations from a person's normal physical and verbal behavior, you must first establish what their normal physical and verbal behavior is. For example, no mood significance should be read into the behavior of someone who normally slouches when he walks, who slumps comfortably and naturally into a chair, and who usually looks you straight in the eye when he talks to you in a soft, slow, but boring voice, without using gestures to enhance what he's saying. However, if the same person pulls his shoulders back, sits up straight in a chair, starts gesticulating, emphatically, which is gesturing emphatically, how about that? And we will not look directly at you as his voice rises and his pitch becomes vigorous. All right, I'm going to read that whole thing over again. And I just want to point out everything I'm about to read is only one sentence, okay? However, if this same person pulls his shoulders back, sits up straight in a chair, starts gesturing emphatically, and will not look directly at you as his voice rises and his speech becomes vigorous, then you should be reading his mood language with great attention, because he is subconsciously telling you something that is important to him. And yes, that was one sentence. Watch particularly for any sudden or dramatic increase or decrease in movement and abrupt changes in verbal and vocal styles. For example, if the person you're talking to suddenly moves his torso dramatically, twists or turns away, bends down, or throws his shoulders back, or even unexpectedly gets up and walks away, pay close attention. Again, his subconscious is leaking a message you should be reading. If a person suddenly and repeatedly crosses and uncrosses his legs, he is trying to relieve stress and is definitely expressing himself in one of the moods. Alert yourself if the person abruptly stops speaking, or his voice suddenly gets softer or louder or higher in pitch. If he starts speaking very quickly, or obviously slows down, and especially if he suddenly starts saying things in a way he doesn't normally express himself. These are all gross signals of mood language that are hard to miss. However, although it is essential to read these obvious signals, there are hundreds of less obvious signals given off by a person's body and voice that you will become more adept at picking up and more closely you observe. There's my little friend, the sun. These are the fleeting signals that last for less than a second. A quick glance, a momentary grimace, a flick of the hand, or an almost imperceptible change of body position, a brief pause, a quick cough, a minute change of pitch, or even the misuse of a pronoun. Unless a person is in the habit of using such a movement or vocal or verbal mannerisms, for example, a grimace could be a facial tic caused by a neurological condition, or a pause is because of asthma, or there is an obvious cause for it. A flick of the hand could simply be to brush away a fly, or change of pitch to pronounce a foreign word. There is some reason for it, and you should attach mood significance to it. Be aware of as many of these brief signals as possible. Okay, number 2, clusters. Clusters are groups of 3 or more signals that send the same message at almost the same time. For example, if when you're talking to your partner, she suddenly drops her head and shoulders, turns away from you, presses her open hand over her eyes, and starts sobbing, you can be pretty sure you are reading a cluster of signals which all tell you unmistakably that she is deeply depressed. Similarly, if she suddenly throws back her head and shoulders, turns away from you, presses her clenched fist to her temples, and lets out a growl of exasperation, you can be certain you are reading a cluster of signals which all express that she is definitely very angry, and angry at you. Her abrupt head and shoulder movements and her turning away from you signal rejection. The signals that follow this rejection signal are in keeping with and corroborate the rejection, the cluster. While these 2 examples use obvious behavioral signals to illustrate the point, the importance of reading clusters rather than individual signals is vital when a person's behavior is more subtle. For instance, if while you are talking to your wife about something important, she keeps nodding and has a smile on her face, you might assume by reading these two individual signals that she is agreeing with you. But you could be wrong. 2 signals are not enough to read anything into. Look for more than 2 signals that support and substantiate the message that you think you are receiving. If, on observing your wife more closely, you notice that her smile seems slightly stiff and has been on her face a little too long, that she is showing only her upper teeth, and that her eyes are not smiling, you are reading a cluster of 4 signals that are sending a very different message. If to that cluster you add the corroborating evidence of her nods being a little too abrupt and a little too frequent, together with the fact that she is sitting stiff and erect, that her arms are in close to her body, and her feet planted on the floor, you are getting a message from someone who is, in fact, extremely angry. You now have 9 signals, each of which supports and substantiates the same message. Together, these form a reliable cluster that you can confidently read as anger. Even though on the surface, your partner may want you to think that she agrees with you and what you're saying. By reading the signals she is sending out in complete clusters, the truth cannot fail to escape you. Number 3. Voice and body signals work in tandem. What people do and the way they do it are usually echoed in what they say and the way they say it. For example, when people are happy, their bodies act happy, and their voices sound happy. If they are sad, their bodies droop, their faces look downcast, their voices drop and slow, and they express what they want to say in sad and depressing terms. Hi, buddies. How nice to see y'all this morning. Okay. I think I'm being flirted with. Got me a couple of scissor tails here. I think my cat can make that noise. Very showy. Okay, sorry for that. Oh my goodness. Can you see that ray? Oh. Maybe a little further back makes it better. I don't know. Oh my word, it's beautiful. Okay, let me stay on task here. I don't know how many pages I have left. 11. Alright, we'll do what we can here. Okay, where was I? Voice and body signals work in tandem. When people are happy, their bodies act happy, and their voices sound happy. Okay, the cluster of signals you get from a person's verbal behavior should synchronize and cluster neatly with the signals you get from his or her nonverbal behavior. If, however, you receive signals from a person's physical behavior that tell you one thing, and signals from the verbal behavior that tell you something different, and there is no neat, synchronized cluster that can be read clearly, an alarm should sound in your mind. That person is trying to hide something from you. Since most people think that others rely merely on what they say, they use speech alone to tell others what they want them to believe. They forget that their bodies are saying something. They are trying to hide their real meaning from other people. So when the messages from a person's voice and from his or her body are out of sync with each other, place more reliance on what his or her body language is telling you. Number 4, proxemics. Dr. Edward T. Hall's theory states that there are certain distances or zones of territory a person keeps between him or herself and another person in order to create a tacit understanding between them. The zones are, okay, I'm going to pop this up here even though it's so beautiful. I think we need to know this. I know I do. Look at that. There's actual 6 inches to 18 inches is intimate distance. 18 inches to 4 foot is personal distance. 4 foot to 12 foot is social distance. 12 foot to 25 plus feet is public distance. Neato Cheeto. I did not know that. Wow. So we didn't have to be 6 feet. We could have been 4 feet. All right, whatever. As the names of these divisions suggest, a person uses each of these zones to communicate intimate, personal, social, or public messages, respectively. When it comes to reading a person's mood language, it is important to observe which of these distances he or she uses in each of the moods. For instance, a person in the mood of depression who moves in very close to you is trying to manipulate you into bonding with him. He is trying to tell you that he really wants to be comforted. However, if he moves as far away from you as he can, he is expressing that he wants to be left alone with his depression and definitely does not want to bond. He is really telling you to go away. Excuse me, Lord. Where am I? There we go. If in the mood of bargaining, someone who normally stays 4 to 12 feet from you, which is considered your social zone, suddenly moves in very close to you, into your intimate zone, you can be sure she is trying to cajole you into giving her something. The way a person changes a space between him or herself and you is useful. Mood language is a useful mood language signal that should be read in a complete cluster with other synchronized signals. Okay, it's just a thick page. All right, number 5. Fight or flight reaction. W.B. Cannon coined this expression in 1929 to describe how a person reacts when they are threatened. The reaction is inherited from the time when primitive man, startled by the sudden appearance of a predator or an unexpected movement, had to decide on the spur of the moment either to stand and fight or flee for his life. At this moment, the heart beats faster. The liver releases glucose into the bloodstream, and the adrenaline starts pumping. In mood language, where it is primarily another person's rejection that is threatening, a person's initial surprise or shock at being rejected sets off a mental, emotional, and physical reaction that causes them to look quickly away or blink momentarily, breaking eye contact. They use this moment to rapidly take stock of the situation and evaluate their position. During this brief evaluation period, they are caught up in the fight or flight syndrome as they try to decide whether to attack or to cut and run. Having decided, for rational and or emotional reasons, to either fight or flee, they determine which one of the four moods of rejection offers the greatest leverage over their opponent. They then consciously and subconsciously slip into the language of that chosen mood. Number 6. A person's body is extremely expressive. It is impossible for a person consciously to control every alteration of the heart rate, every variation of respiratory activity, every change in muscle responses, and every movement of his or her body. People cannot help but express themselves through their bodies, and all their bodily expressions are there to be seen and read by anyone who cares to watch for them. Train yourself to be observant. Look and see every movement, however small, the person you are reading makes. While a person's whole body is expressive, the face is the easiest part of the body to read because the muscles of the face, which react rapidly to any type of stress, are exposed to full view. Since we subconsciously focus on each other's faces when we are communicating anyway, it is not difficult to train your eye to register and read even the most minute movement in this largest exposed group of muscles. Always keep in mind the normal look of a person's face. Then watch for all movements of eyebrows, forehead, lips, tongue, and for any facial tics or spasms that may suddenly change that normal look. Also note particularly any touching of the face, especially in the areas of the mouth and nose. Be aware of slight changes in skin tone, reddening or paling, which indicates certain mood shifts. The eyes particularly betray emotion. It is very difficult for anyone to prevent his or her true feelings from showing in the eyes, and as up to 60% of our communication is usually carried on through eye contact, you should train yourself to pick up any and every change of expression in a person's eyes. Taking off my shoes so I can honk the horn in a surprise in a minute. I was joking. I'm really not going to honk the horn. It spooks me as well. All right, where was I at here? The eyes particularly, yeah. 60%, and as up to 60% of our communication is usually carried on through eye contact, you should train yourself to pick up any and every change of expression in a person's eyes. The next little category, significant mood language expressions. The following sections are intended to give you an overall general picture of what someone in each of the moods does and says, and why he or she says and does it in the way he or she does. In reading their mood language, you should be able to recognize and understand the exact meaning of their behavior. A checklist of the main features and most important expressions of the language of each of these moods is contained in the appendix. Read quickly through the appendix after you have finished this chapter and turn to it for reference as your reading skills improve. Okay, I think I added the anger one to another part, but I'm going to keep reading that because I think the most important thing was that I realized that I was doing certain things and I didn't know that I was doing them. I made that sound really easy, didn't I? It was not that easy. Like, you mean when you cross your legs, it means something? And when you shift in your seat? All that stuff. Like, it's very, very interesting. Forgive me. I did take my Claritin today. Thank you for asking. It made my stomach hurt. Alrighty. Anger. Yeehaw. Page 104. 104. Anger. Whew. A person who is angry is trying to fight rejection. And she uses whatever is at her disposal to attack not only the person who has made her angry, but anything and everything that gets in her way. Because she is fighting so hard, her body is in a state of high arousal. All her muscles are tight and flexing for combat. Her face muscles are taut, and when she is not talking, her lips are either clamped together or drawn back. You may even see a muscle throbbing at her temple or neck. If you see a muscle tick at the side of one or both eyes, you should know she is trying very hard to hold her anger in check. If she starts biting her lips or tongue, she is trying to control what she wants to blurt out. Her eyes are hard and cold. She doesn't blink as frequently as she does normally. She might even try to stare down her opponent in an effort to dominate him. She also needs to relieve her stress and frustration at being rejected by venting her anger as quickly and dramatically as possible. So she uses this dramatic venting to dominate, to control, and manipulate the other person who has rejected her, and in a spirit of revenge, to stress and upset him in return. In attacking the other person, she launches into an assault on everything she can think of: who he is, what he stands for, the way he thinks, the way he feels, his values, his position. The angrier she gets, the greater her scale and range of attack becomes. She also latches onto trivial, irrelevant details and vents her ire on those. In fact, she will assail anything that allows her to deflect responsibility away from herself and blame anyone or anything else. We all know the gross physical signals a person sends out when he is angry. His movements are jerky. His chin juts out. His hands may clench and unclench. and he breathes more loudly than he normally does. If his hands are not gesticulating dramatically, pounding or pointing, his arms are drawn in close to his body or crossed over his chest. But there is a number of other signals that are not usually known to be signs of anger. These are usually signals of anger being kept under control. And you should be aware of some of them at this stage. You are reading latent anger if you see. All right. I know it's beautiful, but I'm going to put this back up here. Because if not for you, then for me. Just... There we go. It looks clear. Okay. There we go. I read. You are reading latent anger if you see a smile freeze on a person's face as his eyes start to stare coldly at you. One or both of his shoulders begin to rise. The arms he has crossed over his chest start rising higher and higher as he gets angrier and angrier. His hands form a figure L with his thumb below his chin and his index finger extended up the side of his face. One hand begins to rub at the back of his neck. This may signal a prelude to physical violence. Anger directed at something inanimate has a calming effect and brings relief quicker than when it is aimed at a person. And the next one, depression. A person who is depressed Here comes a kerfuffle. They're all going in a circle too. Alright, here we go. Depression. A person who is depressed is trying to flee from what he thinks is not only your rejection of him, but also the world's. He is hurting. He can't take any more and tries to ward off any further attack on him from outside. So he turns his anger in on himself and attacks himself to save others the trouble. Because he has given up, his body slows down and he becomes lethargic. His speech becomes softer and slower, and he often will not even bother to complete his sentences, letting his thoughts just trail off. He is so locked in on his own pain that he can't concentrate on what is happening around him. And he frequently misunderstands or completely misses a great deal of what you are saying to him. At the same time, he tries to comfort and soothe himself and to justify his not being able to do anything to correct a situation that's depressing him. He tries to get you to understand his position and sympathize with him. So he talks about his difficult life is for him. He tells you in great detail how much whatever it is that's depressing him is costing him and how deeply he is affected by it. If it sways you, he will also tell you about how he's not sleeping or eating properly and how his health is being affected. In the trying to manipulate you into bonding with him, he attacks himself for all his failings, and will probably even tell you you are better off without him. He wants you to protest and prove him wrong. We all know what people look like when they are depressed, but again, There are certain signals and their meanings which are not generally understood. Some that you should be aware of are, here we go again, Mom. In and out, in and out, in and out. Okay. There. So it's this part right here. And then this teeny little line up top. That is my theme music anytime I'm moving. I just don't usually do it on my videos. But if you know me in real life. This is how I do things. That's the noises I make when I'm accomplishing things. All right, sorry, it's depression, so I'm being silly. It's a habit. Here we go. Woo! So some that we should be aware of are when a person in depression starts breathing or even crying in an audible, exaggerated way. He is trying to communicate to you that he wants your attention. In depression, a person touches his face more frequently than normal. He may rub at or cover his eyes, pull at or cover his mouth, rub the sides of his face or head, and hold his head in his hands. A person who strokes at the inside of his thighs is trying to soothe his depression and comfort himself. If a person subconsciously forms a suicide finger with his index finger extended and pointed at the temple, his thumb pointing upward and his palm curled backward, he is in very deep depression and needs your help. Depression is the most painful mood of rejection, and anger is always just below the surface. All right, and the next one, we have 2 left. Some more freaky charts. Bargaining. A person in the mood of bargaining is trying to both fight against and flee from rejection. Her bargaining behavior is usually overly solicitous and too nice. You will see a great number of submission signals as she tries to show you you have nothing to fear from her. She moves into a closer zone of territory. Then she normally uses and touches you more frequently than she usually does. Her eye contact becomes excessive, and she smiles too often and for too long. Sorry about the bumpy ride there for a second. As her motive is to get you to stop rejecting her and bond with her again, she does anything that will make this happen. She needs to deactivate any conflict as quickly as she can, so she may even tell you she's wrong and you are right, even though she doesn't really believe what she's saying. She doesn't want you to reject her any further, so if it looks as if you are going to attack her again, she tries to ward off your assault by telling you what a good person she really is, what she's done for you in the past, what you or others have said about how thoughtful and considerate she is, about what a good wife, girlfriend, mother, daughter, or husband, boyfriend, father, or son they are, and even may try to explain to you how religious they are. She could try to ward off your attack by telling you how ill she is, how her blood pressure is too high, or her nervous condition is acting up, or what her doctor told her on her last visit. She will demonstrate the appropriate physical behavior to reinforce this argument. She'll start using pet names, flatter you outrageously, make all sorts of promises about what she'll never do again or what she will do in the future, and offer inducements like gifts or treats or sexual favors. She tries to convince you that your needs are of primary importance and hers are only secondary. So she'll take whatever deal you offer, provided you'll just stop rejecting her. Signals of bargaining to watch out for particularly are... Damn it. Here we go again. Back to the top. There it is. Takes less time on this one. Look at that. Woohoo! We did it. Okay. Signals of bargaining to watch out for particularly are crying that occurs too quickly and at inappropriate times. This is used to manipulate you into feeling sorry for her. Glancing toward the ceiling, which implies, "You've got to believe me. I'm helpless in this situation." Holding her hands out toward you, palm upward. This is an obvious submission signal. Tones of voice that are cajoling, wheedling, conciliatory, and altogether too sincere to ring true. And then excessive flattery and or flirtation. Bargaining is the mood closest to acceptance and shows the least number of obvious rejection signals. Alright, the next one, denial. A person who is in denial is attempting to flee rejection. He does this in one of two ways, either by denying the truth to himself through self-deception, or by denying the truth to others through lying. The mood language of the cheating husband, who was confronted by his wife, which was described in Chapter 4, is a typical example of the second form of denial. However, it is the language of the first form, denial through self-deception, that is the most important in reading mood language. A person who is in this form of denial cannot face the reality of being rejected and attempts to convince himself that nothing is wrong. He wants simply to dismiss the thought of whatever it is that would upset him so badly if he faced it. He does not want to acknowledge it, discuss it, or even admit it exists. So he tries to act as normally as possible. Apart from his behavior appearing to be a little forced and strained, and the fact that from time to time you might catch him looking at you with a worried expression, there is very little you can read in what he does and says. If, however, you bring up the issue he is so determined to ignore, you do force him to face the very thing he does not want to deal with, and his denial behavior becomes very obvious. He stammers and stutters. He hems and haws. He shuffles his feet and begins to adjust his clothing or pick imaginary lint off the furniture. He looks at his watch or even suddenly decides it is a good time to clean his glasses. These are all stalling tactics designed to buy time or throw you off the subject. Should these preliminary ploys fail to distract you from the subject, he will probably ask you to repeat what you just said, or he may even repeat it out loud himself with a look of disbelief on his face. Should you persist in questioning him, he will not answer you directly, but will tell you a great deal about all sorts of other things, which usually have little to do with the main issue he is denying. You should notice also that this explanation about anything but the main issue becomes more and more emotional. He may begin talking about other people, and even you, in totally negative and disparaging terms in order to bolster his own threatened self-image. Some of the less obvious signals of denial you should be aware of are I feel like I'm a little struggly. Okay, so these are the ones that are going to be denial right here on this. And then we're going to have these little boxes. Maybe we all need to know this. Maybe it's not just me. Submission signals. And over here we got just say no. And then at the top, it looks like more submission signals. Is that clear? Because it's continued in numbers. Yeah, numbers continue. Alright. That cloud is moving out. It's so beautiful. Alright. We're going to get this in under an hour. We are well over halfway through this book, so yeehaw. Alright. Which one's denial? An increase in your normal blink rate. A hand hovering around the mouth more than normal, and actually covering the mouth as a sentence is disrupted before its completion. Thumb and index finger playing with the lower part of the nose as the person in denial says or is about to say something he does not really believe himself. One hand thrown away from the body to dismiss an idea or a question. Frequent use of expressions like, I can't remember, not that I can think of, or I don't think so. Incomplete sentences, restarted sentences, and sentences picked up in the middle when he knows you are not being taken in by his denial. And the last one, sudden use of third-person words like others, they, them, everybody, no one, as an appeal to universal acknowledgement of his or own version of reality. The language of denial has the greatest range of all the moods of rejection and is the mood most often used. All right, and the last three little, or two, it's submission signals and then just say no. Okay, submission signals. In the world of high-stress criminal interviewing, there are a number of signals that indicate a guilty suspect has reached the point of no return, abrogated all his or her will and power to the interviewer, and is about to make a full and detailed confession. Some of these signs are, number 1, for submission signals, holding and or rubbing the chin while smiling, rubbing the upper lip and lower lips together for 15 to 30 seconds, Eyes rolling back into the head, followed by closing of the eyelids. Eyes raised to the ceiling, accompanied by very slow blink rate. The open palms of the hands suddenly turning upward. A deep sigh, followed by a dropping of the shoulders and the chin sinking to the chest. Number 7, a sudden, inexplicable leaning forward into the interviewer's body space as if to get close. Number 8, the sudden raising of both hands in an almost military surrender gesture. 9, the entire upper body suddenly relaxing and blossoming up. Okay, let me read that again. The entire upper body suddenly relaxing and blossoming open as if to make the heart and chest area vulnerable, as in a target. However, be warned that the world of mutually caring and loving relationships is very different from the world of the police interviewer and the criminal. If in the course of an argument you see any of these signals being sent out, you should stop whatever it is you are saying or doing immediately. You may have won your argument in the short run, but in the long run, after the moment of domination and victory is over, all you will have done is foster a deep and lasting resentment of your power that may be very difficult, if not impossible, ever to rectify. And the last one, just say no. If people say no and mean no, they will say it directly, shortly, and unequivocally because it is the truth. But if when they say no, what they really mean is yes, they will frequently give themselves away by the way they say that no. If, in answer to a direct question, they say no, not as they normally say it, but in one of the following ways, you can be sure they are lying to you. The first one, no, which is a long, drawn-out no. Number 2, ... no, which is a long pause before no. Number 3, no, when it is repeated several times. Number 4, a no preceded or followed by a nervous laugh, chuckling, or inappropriate amusement. Well, that's unfortunate. That's like my personality. Number 5, a no while nodding the head to mean yes. Number 6, a no followed by closing the eyes or putting one hand over the mouth. 7, a no accompanied by an exaggerated shaking off of the entire body. Number 8, a no followed by a quick glance away. Number 9, a no followed by a sudden crossing of the arms and or legs. And the final one, number 10, a no answer to your question before you have even finished asking it. And that was chapter 6. Let's see, what was it called? Read and respond. Oh, there it is. How to read mood language. Now, back here, I know to push this over. Let me go see what I can get out of this appendix back here. I feel the wind messing up my hair, which is funny because my hair wasn't fixed to begin with. But I don't know how noisy it is blowing in your however you listen to me machine. Okay, so I did read the anger one, and I was very interested in all of that. So here's depression. Let me add that to this. It's going to push us over just a little bit. Thank you for being with me. I appreciate you. Okay, some of the how we read, let's see, depression. Depression. Emotions involved are sadness, anxiety, self-pity, self-disgust, fear, regret, and anguish. It is used to flee rejection. It is used to attack self. It is used to protect self from further attack from others, which is closure. It is used to soothe and comfort self. It is used as an excuse for self being unable to do anything to correct the situation. It is used to elicit sympathy and manipulate the other person into bonding. It is used to express the pain being experienced. The mood language of the body in depression. Your breathing becomes deeper and slower and more exaggerated to communicate the depression. Your posture, it becomes slouched and slumped. Movements become slow and lethargic. Your muscle tone becomes almost non-existent. Proxemics, decreased distance to an intimate or personal zone when trying to bond. Increases distance to social or public zone when wanting to be alone. The eyes become dull and lackluster. Eye contact becomes less and less frequent. This is the mood language of the body in depression. The eye's normal blink rate becomes disrupted. There's exaggerated crying may begin. Eyebrows are lower. Forehead, 3 to 5 deep horizontal furrows form. The mouth, lips slacken. Corners may turn down. May begin to quiver to control crying or as a prelude to crying. The head, the chin lowers. Hand-to-head gestures begin to increase, especially any rubbing of the head. Frequently, head is placed in hands. Hands, they rub them together. They rub at the inside of the thigh to comfort self. Frequently touch the face. Rub at or cover eyes. Cover mouth. Massage sides of face or head. Hold head. In extreme depression, may form a suicide finger gesture, which is the index finger extending and touching at the temple, and your hand curled back in pistol representation. And then the next little part here is the mood language of the voice in depression. The speech mannerisms. Delivery becomes halting. Sentences are broken, then restarted from the beginning or from the middle. Thoughts are repeated or trail off. Logic is interrupted. There is a great deal of pausing and hesitation. As depression locks in, difficulty in understanding what the other person is saying, confusion, distortion, misinterpretation, and often complete incomprehension of entire blocks of conversation. The tone of the voice in depression. Self-pitying, sarcastic, and belittling towards self. It is aggrieved, pained. Okay. In extreme depression. Oh, it seems like I read that already. The tone, self-pitying, sarcastic, and belittling towards self. It's aggrieved and pained. The pitch, rate, and volume of the voice in depression is the decrease when experiencing own pain and increase when trying to communicate pain and bond. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. All my rowdy friends. Hi, everybody. Oh my goodness, I cannot get through this with my own distractions. Okay, stay with me. What is said? The voice in depression. Anything to attack themselves. How much this conflict is costing them personally. how deeply it is affecting them. Expressions of regret over the past and gloomy predictions about the future. How other persons' remarks are tearing them to pieces, and how they are not sleeping and or eating properly anymore. And finally, how their health has been affected by continuing conflict. Can you see the birds? They're so pretty. They make a sweet little sound. All right, let's see. We got bargaining, and then we have denial that I haven't read to you yet. We are 105. Let's see. I feel like I'm going to be able to get some more of this read because it's rolling along. The next one will be how to respond to moods. And then I will add another of how we know we're having feelings. But oh my word. Holy camole. Look at that. I still got to see all my cormorants. Oh my goodness. Look at those birds. They are so... You know what I mean. You know where I'm going with that. Oh, another beautiful day. It's been chilly, folks. Grab a jacket. Thank you for being with me and letting me share my book with you. I'm still reading How Can I Get Through to You? Thanks for being with me. I'll see you later.